Well, this is Eleanor.
Yes.
And this is Nem.
Yeah.
And they're both from Larsh, Manchester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can you tell us, Eleanor, where you live?
St Paul's.
St Paul's. How long have you been there?
About, I think I moved in 2019.
Do you like it there? Yeah. And either of you, perhaps both of you could tell me, what Larsh is an international organisation, isn't it, that started in France and now is all over the world. And what's the main thing that Larsh does?
So we're all about building community between adults with and without learning disabilities, aren't we?
Yeah.
So we think that there's something really beautiful that happens when people with learning disabilities and without learning disabilities share life together.
Yeah.
And in Manchester, that looks like we have houses where people live together.
Yeah.
So you live with Juliet and your guinea pigs.
Yeah.
And we also have the Hive, the day service, where people come during the day to do things. Mm-hmm. And we have boogie nights and community gatherings.
We have Billy and Andy.
Music sessions, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then we go on holidays. We recently...
Hope
Fest. We've just come back from Hope Fest, which is a festival with the other Larsh communities.
In Derbyshire.
Yeah, in Hope Valley. And so, Eleanor, you ran the 10K, didn't you, this year? The Great Manchester.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
How did that go?
Really good.
Was it really hard work?
At the end, Nem, Sean and Helen, from Liverpool, could not catch me up.
Really?
Sprinting at the end and we're all knackered.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then you raised £1,000, didn't you?
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. Congratulations.
Will you like to sponsor me?
Of course. Actually, one of the reasons we're here, Eleanor, is because our church sponsors Larsh through our mission team, and every month we send some money to help Larsh do what Larsh does best, which is live in mixed communities, which is modelling something. What do you think? I mean, either of you, Nem, perhaps, what do you think Larsh is really modelling to the rest of the world?
Yeah, so I think we're showing the world that there's a whole different way of being. I think it's really similar to the kind of world that Jesus talked about on our good days, which is that there is space for everyone and that people are loved for who they are and not what they do, and that actually being different to each other is not a bad thing, that there's something really beautiful about belonging to people where we're different from each other. And we have a lot of fun doing that, don't we? We have a lot of parties, and I think Jesus would have liked the parties.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Do you like living with Larsh? Yeah. Is it funny sometimes?
Yeah.
Do you play jokes on people?
Do I know?
Yes. You often like to run up and jump out at people and make them jump.
Yeah.
Eleanor is an incredibly kind person, aren't you? So you are often making people cups of tea and checking how they are, and you're a very good friend.
You this morning.
Yeah, got my peppermint tea this morning. So we look after each other, don't we?
Yeah.
And part of what Larsh is trying to do is to say that people with learning disabilities have amazing things that they can do, and amazing gifts that they can share with the world, and we want to really celebrate.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. And I mean, St James and Emmanuel Church has had quite a long association with Larsh in Manchester, through various individuals and also sort of corporately as an organisation. Well, I remember, Eleanor, when I first came to Manchester in 2005, there was no Larsh house in Manchester, but there was this burning desire to get their first house.
Yeah.
Were you part of that group all the way back then, or did you?
No, but Eleanor was.
Yeah.
So Eleanor, you have been part of the Larsh C group, which is the group of people who are coming together and praying and meeting and raising money and talking about a Larsh community. And you've been part of that for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I moved here in 2013, just as the first house was being opened, and you actually welcomed me and made sure that I felt really at home in Manchester.
So you're one of the originals.
Yeah. And I remember one of the first community gatherings that we had was actually here at St James and Emmanuel.
So, I mean, part of what we're doing today is we're telling our church community and beyond how important our relationship is. And I think one of the things that you've probably found as a community and we found is it's not about like one party gives to another and another is a receiving party. Actually, life is much more equal than that, isn't it? We all benefit from being in relationship, and there are different parts to that relationship, and one of those for us is we're able to give a little bit financially, but we benefit from having our relationship with you in so many other ways, and you give back to us in so many ways. How might our funding help L'Arche here in Manchester? What does it sorts of things does it do to help the community?
Yes, so we use the money that comes from St James and Emmanuel to have Rupa for 1 day a week as our volunteer coordinator.
Okay.
Rupa, who's in the office.
Exactly. So she's taken on being our volunteer coordinator. And
what's that?
It means she looks after the people that come and help out at L'Arche but aren't paid. So like David Chapman.
Yeah.
Or Kath from the Hive.
Yeah.
They're volunteers.
I know Kath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Rupa looks after them and makes sure that they get the right training they need and the support. And what we find is that the money that the government gives us is not as much as all the things that we'd like to do or make a really beautiful and meaningful life.
Yeah.
And so what we find is that by having volunteers, or as we like to call them, our friends, who come in and help, that means we're able to do so much more than we would otherwise be able to. But also finding volunteers and looking after volunteers and checking up on them all takes time, and so to have someone who's able to really dedicate the attention to them to make sure they have a really good experience has just made a huge difference and enables lots of the other bits of community life.
And if say for example people who are watching us now were thinking, oh wow, L'Arche seems like a really amazing place, a really amazing thing, what kind of things might volunteers or friends of L'Arche actually get to do? What kinds of skills are you looking for? What kind of things might people get involved in locally here?
Really, the community is broad and its interests are broad and the needs are broad, so really people can just come and get involved in whatever takes their fancy, really.
Yeah.
You mentioned Hive and St Paul's. What's Hive and what's it got to do with St Paul's?
The Hive, like where they have like cups of tea or coffee or cake, and some people like bring sandwiches and that.
Is it open to anyone or just to the community?
So we've got a couple of things. So the Hive is the name for our day service that runs Monday to Wednesday, because one of the things we realised is that not everybody will be able to live in a L'Arche house. So we wanted to give more people, because we've only got 6 houses. We won't fit everyone in.
No.
So we wanted to be able to expand.
We might open some more in the future.
Maybe. But we wanted to expand the opportunity to be part of a L'Arche community for more people with learning disabilities.
Yeah.
And you're right, Eleanor. So we then run Le Bee, as it's now called, which is the community cafe, and that's open 10:30 to 1 on a Monday.
Yeah.
And you're right, tea and cake and coffee and a very warm welcome.
To anybody at all?
To anyone.
I think people watching this would be really interested to know kind of what are the high points for you as a community, thinking locally, I think. Yeah. What are the high points? What might be some of the low points or some of the stress points, the difficulties? And how might we pray for you?
Yeah, so I think the good stuff is really about when we get to be together, and particularly after COVID, we just don't take that for granted anymore. So it's in the little everyday things of having a cup of tea, and then it's the bigger things like going away together. So I think we are at our happiest when we're celebrating and enjoying each other's company.
Yeah.
And I think some of the stuff that can be hard is that sometimes finding assistance has been difficult. I think people have been, so they're the people who kind of support the core members, the people with learning disabilities. And I think COVID means that sometimes people think that working in health and social care is scary or not very much fun. So There's
You're fun then.
Thank you. So across, I think there's 165,000 care workers missing nationally.
Wow.
So it's a really big problem, and we really want to find the right people.
Yeah.
It's really important that they really understand what we're doing in Lush.
Yeah.
So that's something people can always pray for is finding enough assistance.
Yeah.
And I think also there's something around, sometimes the finances are difficult, and how do we manage to keep doing what we want to do, and how can we be creative with that? So just feeling supported. It makes, to be honest, we feel very loved by the community at St James and Emmanuel, and that makes us feel like we're not doing it by ourselves, because sometimes what we're doing can feel countercultural and a bit risky, and it can feel a bit lonely. So to know that people are praying for us and supporting us feels brilliant.
We do think that Lush is amazing, and we're very proud as a church to support you. Am I?
Yeah.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you, Eleanor. Eleanor.
Yes.
You can have the last word. What would you like to say to the viewers?
What do you mean?
Is there anything you'd like to say to the people who are watching?
Everyone is amazing.
Yeah. Everyone is amazing.
Yeah, just like Nem as well.
And just like you.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Thank you so much
It's
for
been
having us.
so good to speak to you today.
We had a
Thank you.
great time.
Yeah.